We're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Sergeant Mirantha Hockemeyer. I work with Speedway Police Department. I've been involved with our Neighborhood Watch program for several years now. I want to first say thank you very, very much for coming out tonight. We cannot do the things we do here in town without all of your support and coming out to these events and showing us how much you care and how much you want to be involved and help us maintain a very, very safe community. So thank you very, very much. I want to go ahead and do some introductions. My co-partner is Officer Jereme Howery. We both work day shift, and so you probably have seen us out and about in uniform doing various things from the morning hours. We wear a lot of different hats for the department, so you've probably seen us involved in other things. And then I want to go ahead and do some other introductions. Our first one, from our Community Prosecutor. She's assigned to Speedway Police Department. This is Marion Fleetwood. She's over there. She might end up speaking tonight, maybe not. We'll see how this goes. And then our obvious star of the hour is Prosecutor Terry Curry, who is here to speak with you guys tonight and provide a lot of information, okay? We're just going to go ahead and let him get started because what he has to say is the most important tonight, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'm mic'd up here. First of all, again, thanks for coming out. This is a really nice turnout. We never know, as we do these sort of things. But in addition to Marianne, who is part of our Community Prosecution Division, Sergeant David Lindsay from IMPD is here. He is assigned to our office full-time as an investigator, primarily doing long-term investigations, white-collar crime, and I see my friend Andy Harris is here as well. I'm always amazed when I come back. I don't live too far away. I live over in 17th in Alabama in the general vicinity of downtown. But every time I come over here, I'm amazed because I had an uncle who worked at Allison's entire life, lived over here on Ford. And the transformation of Speedway over the last several years has just been amazing, and obviously in a very, very positive way. Just a little bit about our office. We have almost 400 employees. About 185 of those employees are attorneys or deputy prosecutors like Marianne, and so we're the equivalent of the third largest law firm in the city. Anyone want to guess how many criminal cases we resolve in any given year? No? No idea. No, sir. How many criminal cases do you think we resolve in a given year? I have no idea. Yeah. What? 200? 30,000. That's everything from public intoxication all the way up to the most serious offense being murder, of course. And in addition to our responsibility for prosecuting any crime that occurs in Marion County, we also have responsibility for collecting child support on behalf of custodial parents who asked our assistance in doing so. And we have approximately 50,000 open child support files. We collect almost $100 million a year on behalf of custodial parents and their children. And I throw these numbers out all the time, and at some point after I'd done it, I realized the significance of those numbers wasn't even registering with me, because if you think about starting with the child support component of our office and 50,000 files, that's 100,000 people right there, a custodial parent and a non-custodial parent, without even considering the number of children who are implicated in our child support efforts. And any given criminal case could involve certainly a defendant, the person's been arrested, defendant's family, a victim's family, witnesses, police officers. And so, as I think about these numbers and sort of extrapolated those numbers, at some point I realized that what we do impacts hundreds of thousands of people every year in central Indiana. And so we kind of kicked around, within the office what I might talk about tonight, and really what we decided is just kind of a potpourri of things, and in particular to talk about a couple of subjects that are things that are not obvious. Everyone is familiar if there's a high-profile crime that occurs or prosecution of the individuals who caused the explosion in Richmond Hill subdivision. Everyone's aware of those things, but there are so many things that we do that people aren't aware of. And first of all, Marianne, why don't you pass out the this one? Yeah. So through our Community Prosecution Division, which is, again, we have prosecutors, deputy prosecutors, who are assigned to each of the IMPD police districts, as well as Marianne and another deputy prosecutor who work in the included cities, Speedway, Lawrence, Beech Grove. The community prosecutors are part of our outreach to be involved directly in the community and to help address any issues that are specific to any given neighborhood. And as part of the Community Prosecution Division, we do a number of crime prevention programs. I'll just describe them very briefly. They're on here, but the message here tonight is, if these are of any interest to you, we do them for free. We're doing them every single week, either through the schools or through churches, your crime watch group, neighborhood association. So the first one is Project CyberSafe. It is a program we started in the first year I was in office, 2011. Now been presented to well over 20,000 students here in Marion County, and it's merely to educate kids about the dangers of and misuse of social media and the internet. Educating kids about gun violence is just what it sounds like. It's a presentation done by the combination of an emergency room doc from Eskenazi and one of our deputy prosecutors talking about, number one, the medical implications of gun violence, and our deputy prosecutor talking about the legal implications of gun violence. Teen dating violence prevention is exactly what it sounds, again, directed to kids to recognize warning signs in dating situations. Fraud prevention and senior safety, I'm sure we've all gotten those emails that that we have some distant relative who died in Ethiopia, and they can't find any heir to send that $50 million to. It's providing education to, in particular, senior citizens as to be alert and not be victimized by those sort of scams. We do a burglary prevention program, and part of that is called Safety by Design. SEPTED, crime prevention through environmental design. We do these presentations to provide information about how to minimize the possibility that you'll be burglarized in your home or your business, how to better use lighting, how to better use landscaping, that sort of thing. In addition, upon request, we will come to your home, we will come to your business and do an audit of your property and make suggestions as to things that you can do to improve the safety of your property. We do a safe rental program. It is a very popular program for landlords, rental property owners. It's a day-long program, how landlords can better screen the individuals who are applying to live in their property, as well as, again, also steps they can take to safeguard their property through better use of lighting and landscaping. And the others are just on the back, some of the things I already referred to, that we do child support, Adult Protective Services Unit is essentially the adult equivalent of Child Protective Services, where we investigate possible exploitation of endangered adults. Second thing, if we could hand this out, I'll go through this a little bit too. Everyone have one of these. So I brought this along again, just sort of like the crime prevention programs, just to share a little bit about things that we do that aren't obvious to most people. This particular flyer came about, and I'm going to talk about the programs that are on here, but it came about after attending, and I attend a lot of meetings like this, and hopefully I won't get to this tonight, but it's not uncommon for people to yell at me and say, you know, all you care about is putting people in prison, and you should be doing this, and you should be doing that. And frequently my response is, well, we are doing that. And we do have those programs. And so we realized we needed to do a better job of publicizing the programs that we have that are intended to divert low-level offenders out of the criminal justice system, particularly individuals who are dealing with mental health issues and substance abuse issues, to find better ways to deal with the factors that are driving their criminal behavior other than just continuing to churn them through the criminal justice system. So we put together this flyer called Taking a New Approach. At the top there, the first programs are diversion programs, and misdemeanor diversions is something that's been around forever, basically. So a typical example, if someone, you know, a young person gets arrested for a shoplift, we enter into a diversion agreement with them. They agree to attend certain classes, and if they successfully complete that class, complete the diversion, then the case is dismissed against them. Felony Diversions is a new program that began last year. That is, we are attempting to extend that concept to individuals who have committed low-level, non-violent felonies, and to, again, get them to the services they need to address whatever issues that they are having. And if they successfully complete that program, then the case is dismissed against them. We're off to a really, really good start. Judge Marshall, Helen Marshall, is the judge who's taken responsibility for it at the court level, and we have, I believe, approximately 100 individuals who are part of the program now, and we've had several who have successfully completed and graduated from that program. The driver's license suspension diversion program. We'll go back again, see if I get any better responses to audience participation. Anyone want to tell me how many people you think there are in Marion County with a suspended driver's license? Ma'am?
I'd say about 3,000.
Okay, anyone else? No? There are 100,000 people in Marion County with a suspended driver's license. Representative Robin Shackelford, who is in the state legislature, has introduced a bill the last couple of years as sort of an amnesty program for individuals with a suspended driver's license, modeled off something we've done in California. And we have supported her bill and testified on her behalf. And in preparing to testify, we called the BMV to get that number. I'm not kidding. We called 3 times to confirm. It's like, are you sure that is correct? We couldn't believe that that was the number, but it is. And even before we became involved with Representative Shackelford's legislation, we had our own driver's license diversion program where individuals who had a suspended license, and here's what happens, is that, you know, individual gets a ticket, they fail to show up, and then their license is suspended. Then there's a pretty large reinstatement fee to get your license back, and it just snowballs from there. And you know, and I'll allude to this also in the child support area in a minute. But we think that what we do in our diversion program is we enter into an agreement with those individuals, those men, those women, to basically compromise whatever outstanding tickets they have, and they get those tickets paid, then we assist them in getting their driver's license reinstated. Because if someone doesn't have a driver's license, that's an obstacle to being employed and just a hazard within our city. Drug treatment court is exactly what it sounds like. Individuals who have clear substance abuse issues and low-level offenses, non-violent low-level offenses, are diverted in drug treatment court. And if they enter into the program, they undertake a very rigorous one-year program. And if they successfully complete that program, then whatever their case is that's pending is dismissed. Our experience has shown that 2/3 to 3/4 of the individuals who successfully complete that program, we don't see them again in the criminal justice system for 5 years in the 5 years after they've successfully completed the program. So we're convinced it works, and we're constantly looking at ways to expand upon it to help individuals, again, low-level offenses, to address their substance abuse problems. Veterans Court listed there is essentially the same sort of program directed to veterans who have substance abuse and mental health issues or dealing and have committed low-level offenses. The next two programs are Behavioral Health Court and PAIR program. Those are for individuals who clearly have identified mental health issues, to get them married up with the mental health professional to identify what those issues are and to get them on a treatment program and out of the criminal justice system. Second chance law, well, I'm going to come back to that. In the area of child support, again, as it relates to driver's licenses, as the prosecutor's office, we have the authority, if an individual develops an arrearage in their child support, to unilaterally suspend that person's driver's license. When I took office, that seemed kind of counterproductive to me and counterintuitive, that if we want someone to be employed and to support their child and pay their child support, they need their driver's license to go back and forth to work. And so in the first year, and I think it mentions here, we did an amnesty program back 2011 and have kind of continued the same concept going forward, and that is if someone has an arrearage, we want them just to come in, work with us, and if they do that, then we will reinstate their driver's license as long as they just keep working in some way toward addressing their arrearage. I'll not address anything else on the rear of the approach, pretty self-explanatory, other than the second chance law. The second chance law was enacted by the legislature in 2013, and what it provides is that individuals who either have an arrest on their criminal history or a conviction, depending on what that conviction is, after a passage of a certain period of time, that they can have that conviction expunged or sealed. We not only supported that bill, I testified in support of the bill at the legislature, we actually helped write the bill. And our philosophy was pretty simple, and that is individuals come into the criminal justice system, they pick up an arrest, a conviction, and at that point, what's our expectation of them? We're telling them, don't do it again, don't reoffend. And if an individual meets that expectation, then our belief is that we should do what we can to assist them to become a productive member of the community. And they should be able to remove that stigma of that prior conviction. So there are some convictions that cannot be expunged. The most serious offenses, such as murder, attempt murder, robbery with a deadly weapon, that sort of thing, most sex offenses cannot be expunged, but others can. The general guidelines are that if you have an arrest that doesn't result in a conviction at all, you can have that arrest expunged within 1 year of the arrest. If it's a misdemeanor conviction, that can be done within 5 years. If you have a felony conviction, you can be done within 8 years. I don't know, there was some publicity about it. We did a second chance workshop recently, and about 1,500 people showed up. and we were a little overwhelmed. We had asked people to register, and so we were able to work through virtually all the people who registered, took contact information for everyone else. To date, from 2013 to the present, in Marion County, and of course we're talking about only addressing Marion County arrests and convictions. Until today, we've processed about 15,000 petitions. The petitions are filed with the court. We're served with it, and then depending upon the circumstances, it's our obligation to respond to the petition in some way, and ultimately then it's up to the court to grant or deny the petition. But if individuals meet the criteria, then our position is, as I've said, we're on board with the idea of supporting a second chance for individuals who have stayed out of trouble. Again, if you have any question about that, why don't you hold those. One last subject, and this is going to be perhaps a controversial subject to bring up, but I find in these groups that one thing that I've learned in the last couple of years is that there's a lot of misinformation and lack of information about firearms and the extent that firearms, the purchase and possession of firearms are regulated in the state of Indiana. And a lot of it started when a police officer was shot and killed on the east side of Indianapolis, Perry Wren. And I don't know if that's going to stay there. That's an AK-47, which is a Russian style semi-automatic rifle. This particular AK-47 has a stock that folds down so that it could be carried like a pistol. And over at 30th and Forest Manor a few years ago, literally at a neighborhood cookout, a young man named Major Davis had this very AK-47. Officer Wren and another officer responded to a report of shots fired, and in the confrontation that occurred, Officer Wren was shot and killed. The Major Davis was walking around at again a neighborhood cookout carrying this AK in this manner. And the reason I use this as an example is after that occurred, well, let me back up. One very important fact. Major Davis had no significant criminal history. He had one prior misdemeanor conviction. And so under Indiana law, there was absolutely nothing that prohibited him or anyone else from walking around carrying a semi-automatic rifle. And so after that particular murder occurred, I was at another neighborhood meeting, and a woman again was yelling at me as to how is that possible, and I and why is it, should that person not have had a permit? And the fact is that in the state of Indiana, the only weapon that requires a permit is a handgun. Any other firearm, including a firearm like this, does not require a permit. This particular weapon had been legally purchased by Major Davis's mother, but Major Davis could have probably purchased it himself. And in terms of a background check in Indiana, a background check is required to purchase a weapon like this or a handgun only if the purchase is made through a federally licensed dealer. And so that if a purchase is made in any other context other than from a federally licensed dealer, a retailer, then there is no requirement of a background check. And obviously that is a topic, a hot topic of discussion now both at the federal level at Congress as well as in our state legislature. But again, what I found is that many do not realize that in the state of Indiana, essentially there's only two limitations on purchasing and possessing a firearm. And that again is, in terms of purchasing, there will be a background check done if you purchase it through a federally licensed dealer, retailer. And secondly, you're not required to have a permit to have that weapon unless it is a handgun that you have somewhere other than on your own property, and in which case you are required to have a permit, which requires an application process, a fingerprinting, and then you're given a permit. There was one other point I was going to make about that, but for now, at the moment, it slipped my mind.
Why would you not need a permit, and why would you need that time?
Well, those are very good questions, and we could probably get a whole range of conflicting opinions just here in this room. But from my standpoint, going backwards, this weapon is of no use other than military use, in my mind, in my position, or target shooting. We have other officers in addition to David in our office, and they have to qualify with their firearms. And I'll tell you, I've gone to the range with them and shot ARs. I own a handgun myself and shot those. But other than sport shooting and military use, no, there is no use to be made of that weapon. And in terms of why you shouldn't have a permit, I think you should. The legislature to date, our Indiana legislature, has not required a permit. On the contrary, as noted on the back, in 2018, a bill was introduced to even eliminate the requirement of a permit for a handgun. And I testified against that bill. And fortunately, in my mind, that bill was defeated. But it is clearly, for obvious reasons, subject of significant debate. But in my mind, and we see the consequences of handgun or firearm violence every single day. Our police officers do as well. And so no one is trying to take away firearms from responsible gun owners. It's just a matter of having sensible, reasonable restrictions on the ability to sell firearms and the ability to possess firearms. So that's kind of just a potluck combination of subjects. I'm happy to answer any questions about any of those subjects or anything else you want to talk about.
The bad guys don't go to a reliable licensed dealer to get their guns. They go in the back alleys to get their guns, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
I just said the bad guys don't get their guns from a licensed, regulated dealer, do they? Don't they get them from the back alleys and from sources only they know about?
Some do. Some do. The question was, do the bad guys get their guns in back alleys? And yes, absolutely, some do. And so to those who say that bad guys will still get guns even if we have additional restrictions, yeah, that will happen. But in my mind, if we have reasonable regulation of the sale of such weapons, we will at least decrease the proliferation, just the absolute proliferation of firearms that we see. And again, I know this is, I realize that this is a sensitive subject, but one of the things that those who I'll say are pro-gun, pro-NRA, talk about, well, Chicago has strict gun regulations in the city of Chicago. Well, the majority of guns that are used in crimes in Chicago come from other states, including a huge number that come from Indiana, where people can come and more easily buy firearms. Yes, ma'am.
So, is there something being done about gun laws, and what is being done about gun laws? What is being done? Because every time you turn on the news, we're having this issue about guns. So what is being done?
Yeah.
What is being done?
In the last legislative session, our office, helped draft bills that would have required universal background checks. In other words, any sale of a firearm would have required a background check of the purchaser. And by background check, well, let me explain what that means. There's what's called the NICS system, National Information Crime System, I think it is, NICS. And it's a database where the purchaser of a firearm has to submit the information about the buyer, if I'm buying it, about me, and if anything shows up in there, whether I've been determined to be have a mental illness or criminal history or domestic violence, that will potentially eliminate me. So when I say background checks, that's what I'm talking about. So right now, if you go to a place like Don's Guns, that's a licensed dealer, they would submit your name through the background check. If you go to the gun show at the Indiana State Fair, probably not. So number one, we drafted a bill for universal background checks. We drafted a bill to ban extended magazines for these sort of weapons. To limit it to like 10, I've got other slides I could show you where a bunch of kids are showing off their handguns with all have extended magazines that hold as much as 30, 40, 50 rounds. So would have banned those and other steps. So the bills we drafted, and we worked with some legislators, including Representative Kerry Hamilton, Representative Ed Delaney. They introduced the bills. The legislature didn't even give them a hearing. So at the state level, we will be working again with those legislators to get bills introduced to have that conversation. At the federal level, a bill for comprehensive background checks has passed in the House, but has not been given a hearing yet in the Senate. So there's legislation being discussed. After the mass shooting in Las Vegas at the Country Western, obviously it was learned that the weapons were semi-automatic weapons, but they'd used a device called a bump stock to alter the weapon to essentially turn it into an automatic weapon, like a machine gun. And so actually by administrative order, President Trump has banned the sale of bump stocks. And so there are things being done because, again, that's my personal opinion. We need sensible regulation of lethal firearms in our country. And again, I own a handgun. We're not talking about taking away weapons from responsible gun owners. What ways can we decrease just the absolute proliferation of weapons? Yes, sir.
Talking about universal background checks and a lot of other things. It's my understanding that every weapon has a serial number, correct? Correct. How come we're not registering each weapon, every single one of them, like we do a vehicle? You said you found out over 100,000 people have a suspended license. The DMV can track that. They can track as many guns in Marion County, and then you have a record and a tracking. It's sold from A to B to C, and if any along the way they break a law, that's where you need to throw the book at.
I agree.
How come you're talking about drafting bills and this, that, and the other? How come your office isn't pushing for registration of every single firearm?
At this point, without that would go hand in hand with universal background checks. I agree. There has been no effort made at the federal level or state level to require that sort of of tracking.
How come your office isn't pushing for it harder?
We're trying a step at a time to even get what we think is the easy stuff. The ATF has the ability to track origination of weapons, but there is no current requirement. That's a good point. You're right.
All the laws and regulations, I can't see how it would do anything to rein in the large number of illegal arms that are already out there. I mean, I just have a hard time wrapping my head around how do you get all these that are already out there. I mean, you can do background checks on new people, but there's a lot of guns out there. How do you ever rein all those?
Mm-hmm. Well, and you're exactly right. I mean, what we essentially we would be hoping to accomplish is to decrease the sale going forward to individuals who shouldn't be buying them. On the other hand, IMPD, and I'm betting Speedway as well, IMPD is taking thousands of guns off the street every year. And so guns that are used in crimes that we're able to determine or prosecute someone, convict them of crime, those guns are being destroyed. And so that's literally thousands. There's also been a lot of discussion about red flag law or Jake Laird law, and what that is the individuals. If the police come upon someone that they believe is suffering from some mental health issue, that they and they pose a immediate threat to themselves or someone else, the police actually have the ability to seize that weapon on the spot, which they typically wouldn't be able to do. And then it falls upon us to file a petition with the court to establish that that's the case. And so we file those pretty regularly. Now it's a much smaller number, but those are individuals that those arise most often in domestic violence situation or an individual threatening suicide. And so weapons are being taken off the street, no question, thousands of them. What we want to do is eliminate the ones that are coming back onto the street through improper means. Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk a little bit about gun buyback programs, and do they work? How do they operate?
I don't think they're very effective because what.
I mean, obviously, criminals aren't going to surrender.
Right, and we always end up in a I don't want to say a dispute, but if well-meaning groups, and it typically tends to be church groups, want to do it, we want to say to them, if you're taking weapons from someone, we want to know where they came from, and more to the point, most of them end up to be grandma's 22 revolver that's half rusted out at that point, but it does take some off the street that otherwise might end up being stolen in a burglary or in the hands of a kid, and so yeah, there's some value to it. Yes, sir.
Watching the news on Ohio and Las Vegas, you mentioned that. Has the federal government or any state government or whoever seen a red flag when somebody's buying 10,000 rounds, 15,000 rounds of ammunition? I mean, doesn't that, you are owner of a gun shop and somebody comes over and buys 300 rounds today and in a week comes back with another 200 and then 10 days later comes back and buys another 500. Doesn't that raise a flag saying why?
It should. It should, but at this point, there's no reporting. There's no reporting requirement that would require the gun shop owner to report that sort of information.
Back to legislation, trying to pass laws, common sense gun laws. That's what he's been trying to do. I commemorate him for that.
No, I mean there are so many things. I mean, both your points are well taken. that I think we could do, and you know, I'll go a step further since I've already opened this all up. Is, you know, really this is not about the Second Amendment. It is not. You know, what's driving this is not about the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. It's the gun industry that's really driving the debate and the ability to just sell stuff, not only to have firearms, to be able to sell the firearms themselves, but you know, the bump stocks, extended magazines, you know, all of those sort of things. You know, it's the gun industry that's involved. In November of 2017, I went to Washington, D.C. For a meeting of Prosecutors Against Gun Violence, and it is an association of large city prosecutors, and we went to meet with members of Congress to meet with individual legislators about bills that we supported and bills that we opposed. And one in particular is a perfect example, is that there was a bill called, it's been too long, I can't remember, but the acronym made it sound like it was about hunting, but one provision of the bill would have been to deregulate the sale of silencers. So silencers currently are heavily regulated, and this bill, and it's not passed, but it's it's typical of the bills that are just constantly being introduced in Congress that favor the gun industry. And that particular bill, among other things, would have deregulated the sale of silencers.
I mean, just watching Purdue Pharmaceuticals, you know, that was started in 2011, selling all this medicine and whatever they, you know.
Right.
And it took, 7 years to figure it out, to get it done, and now it's bankrupt and it's paying billions of dollars. Why the IRA is about? Why nobody can do anything about that? Is there too much money involved in that? I mean,
you know, all I know is like you read in the news accounts that they're having some internal policy disputes and perhaps financial issues, but you know, clearly the NRA is well funded. I'm sorry, by its members and by the gun industry, no question. But you know, on the other hand, you know, I've had occasion over the last 2 years to work with Moms Demand Action and other groups involved in these issues, and you know, they're getting stronger and stronger by the day, and you know, it's just like Walmart, you know, announcing that, you know, please, customers, don't open carry in our stores. You know, which seems to be a reasonable request. One other thing about, you know, where we are in Indiana is that you know, as a municipality, as a city of Indianapolis, if we said we don't want you carrying your handgun into Eagle Creek Park, we can't do that. The legislature a few years ago passed a bill that prohibits any municipality from regulating firearms in any way, and so we have no ability to. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yes, sir.
What I don't quite understand is, why does the NRA have so much power over our politicians? You know, it seems like politics are all about money. Okay? I mean, right? And they seem that there's no restrictions on where they get their money. What they need to do is pass some legislation whereby politicians not accept money from NRA, and maybe that might result in a change in laws and attitudes about guns. Because, like I say, my dad and I go back to, we were gun owners Dad's gone, but once I inherited some of his guns. And let me tell you, how many guns can you use at one time? My dad had like 5 or 6 rifles. Okay? And like I said, what I ended up doing, I sold all. I mean, I'm the oldest child, so when we went to take care of the business, you know, relative to things left behind, I sold just about every one of the guns. Okay? Just kept one. It was a rifle, 30, I think. And it's never been used except for target practice. It is a very powerful weapon with the sniper scope and all that sort of thing. But what I'm saying to you is that guns, they have a place for hunting. It's not for killing people. It's for going out there and hunting deer or whatever. And I can't understand. And then I think the amendment to the Constitution that everyone has a right to carry firearms or something like that, I thought that was limited to military or police department. I mean, the definition of who has the right to carry a gun, it's been broadened so much, it's distorted. Back in the days when they were fighting Indians and all sorts of things, I mean, back in what, 1800s, 1700s, you could see a need for a weapon to protect your family against, you know, adversaries. But we're in the United States now. We're not fighting an internal enemies. We're supposed to be focusing on fighting external enemies. Okay, like the Taliban and all that sort of thing. But I think that law, that amendment needs to be repealed or modified.
Well, there are a lot of questions there, and you know, and starting with having in the family. I told you my uncle lived over on Ford, and my Uncle Jim was a big hunter, and after he passed away, I now own his pump 22 rifle. And do I occasionally go out and clink tin cans with it? Yeah, I do. But your question about the Second Amendment is, and it gets to what I said about that this is not about the Second Amendment, because the Second Amendment, the courts have repeatedly held that reasonable restrictions upon the sale and possession of firearms does not violate the Second Amendment. And, so the states that have passed more stricter regulation, those laws have been upheld because they don't violate the Second Amendment. And then as to the fact that who makes political contributions, that's our unfortunate reality, and I wish we could do something about it as well. That money is driving our political life and distorting our political life. I agree, absolutely agree. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering if you had any information, or maybe SPD, like people say like the only person that can stop a bad person in mass shooting is one good guy with a gun. Like how often does that really happen? Like at Walmart when he's opening fire, how often? What are the chances of a good guy with a gun taking out that? Are there statistics?
There are, and I don't know them off the top of my head, but for example, if you go to Gabby Gifford, if you remember Gabby Gifford, she was a congresswoman, it's Gifford's Law Center. Go to her website, and then she has information on all that sort of thing. And yes, the likelihood of someone with a weapon being able to stop something is a lot less than the ability to prevent the ownership of the weapon in the first place. And it gets to and that's part of the debate about extended magazines. I mean, it's absolutely morbid to have to address it in this way. She's got a question. Address it in this way, but if people were limited to magazines that held no more than 10 rounds, the number of individuals who have died in these shootings would have been significantly less in places like El Paso and Dayton. Yeah.
What can we do? As I know we have all these questions and everything, but what can we do? I mean, we vote for the right people that's gonna drain the swamp, and he's still there. you know, it's gonna change the laws still. You know, what can we do as citizens to push somebody, you know, to do that? Because nothing works, you know? So what can, as citizens, how can we protest or say something about it? You know, or support you, send letters to you? What?
Stay informed. Just stay informed, and particularly on, any given issue. Well, first of all, let me say this. I know for a fact that legislators pay attention to the phone calls they get and the emails they get. They do. And so, for example, if it's gun issues and you want to know what's going on and be able to take a position, just Moms Demand Action, Facebook, they have a Facebook page. Go there and they'll constantly update you on what's going on, what bills are being heard. We're in the committee hearings. This bill here I mentioned, where in 2018 there was a bill to eliminate the requirement of a handgun permit. Most times when a bill is being heard in committee at the legislature, it's in a room not much bigger than this. At that hearing on that bill, there were so many people showed up that it was in the entire assembly room. And the entire room was 98% of the people in that room were women in red t-shirts. It was Moms Demand Action. And so it's just a matter of being an advocate. There's contact information for our office on all these things, and so if there's anything that you have a question about, don't hesitate to reach out to our office as well.
How long have you been in office?
How long? Well, there are some people who think I've been in way too long. I was reelected last November, and so a little over 8.5 years. This is my third term. Yeah.
Is there a term limit?
Yeah, my wife. No, the direct answer to your question, no, there are no term limits for prosecutor. This will be my last term, no question. Yes, sir.
Terry, we've met a few times.
Yes, we have.
Here in Speedway.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service and the way that you help our police department and others to bring justice to the situations we deal with.
Speaking of which, where's your lazy chief tonight?
He sent us, it is
Okay.
So we can handle it.
A couple questions I have for you is, first of all, what do you enjoy about your job? Doing it as long as you have, and you've done it well, thank you for that. But what do you enjoy about your job, and then what can we do here as a community to help you in that?
I'll go backwards. What people can do in the community is just stay involved. I mean, Chief Roach will hear it, Chief Campbell would say it, everyone says we can't do it by ourselves. And so, we need the community to be involved, and if that involves, forming a crime watch group for your block, being involved in your neighborhood association, if you go to any of our burglary prevention programs, it'll say be a nosy neighbor. Be absolute nosy neighbor, and you know what's best on your block as to what looks right and what doesn't look right, and don't hesitate to contact the Speedway officers to follow up, and just be an engaged neighbor. And there are neighborhoods throughout. Even though we have challenges, there are great neighborhoods throughout the city, including Speedway, where people are doing the right thing. What do I like best about my job? I get asked that question, and I say the same thing every time. I get to come into an office every single day where there's almost 400 people who are passionate about what they do. They get a lot of satisfaction about what they do. They enjoy it. We have a great collegial atmosphere, and I get to come into that work environment every single day. I contrast that from when I was in private practice in a law firm and say, I don't remember many of my colleagues who got up in the morning and came in and said, oh, I'm going to answer some interrogatories today, or I'm going to, it's I love my office, you know.
Well, and I was going to say, if I may, he's a good boss, and that makes a huge difference. And I'm not saying that just because he's here. He is. I've worked in our office for a while, so I've worked under others. And there is this sense of he encourages us to be out in the community. Speedway is a great place for me to actually get to work. And I have an office in the Speedway Police Department, so I am available anytime you have any questions about any of this, even if it's contact information. Feel free to get in touch with me, and then I can, direct you to whoever else you need to talk to. So there's that. And I do think that one of the important things about community prosecution is that we are encouraged to be out here so that you're not getting a phone tree someplace. You're getting real live humans to talk to. So if you need a presentation on something or you come to these meetings, there's always someone that will be here face to face and answer your questions. I think that's extremely important, and we've gotten wonderful feedback from most people who really appreciate that. The fact that he stands up there and will take your questions, good, bad, and indifferent. I'm lucky I just get to stand up.
Yeah, but no, it's a very good point Marianne makes, and working with the Speedway department is by being out in those communities, you can address issues that are unique to that neighborhood. Things might be happening in Speedway that's different than things that are going on in Beech Grove, and so it's a very good point. And the other part about it is I get to come out every 4 or 6 months and make the chief buy me lunch at Dawson's. So. I'm not kidding, I do. Yes, sir.
Can you carry a gun in Eagle Creek Park now?
No, absolutely not. Oh, I'm sorry, no.
I mean, can I carry mine up there in
Eagle Creek Park?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm absolutely misspoke, misunderstood. The question was, could you carry this in Eagle Creek Park? Yes, yeah. There is nothing to prevent someone from carrying a firearm in Eagle Creek Park.
Usually it's better.
Yeah.
So you need a permit for a handgun, but not for that.
That is correct.
Not for that.
That is correct. Well, this is a great turnout tonight. I appreciate you coming out. I'm happy to stay around.
Give the prosecutor a round of applause. We thank you for coming out. You actually answer a lot of questions that after we arrest somebody, we really don't know what happens with them until we have to go to court. So all these options that were available that you presented, I appreciate it. That gives me a little bit more insight on what happens.
We had occasion to appreciate the Speedway Police Department just one day last week when our lawn care person was assaulted in our front yard and beaten up. And we were down the basement, but our next door neighbor happened to see something going on and she called the police. Thank goodness for that. But he was injured, and I guess they did make an arrest of the fellow on 21st Street. They caught up with him.
Okay.
But I'd be interested to know what happens with that. I really would.
So we'll jump in and take over here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Jump in here for a second and take over. I know everyone loves the point where we get our questions and answers. And we're going to stand up here and tag team. I know Jereme is just over the moon to talk to you guys tonight. He's really getting into this public speaking thing, so we're absolutely going to roll to him. That incident, we info and let you know. Okay? Yep.
Does anybody have any questions about anything that's going on in town or anything that I can add to what Prosecutor Curry added? Yes.
On the news the other day, I seen something about gift cards where they're coming up empty and people get all their information and their bank accounts.
All I can talk to you about is situations I've been involved with. I can't elaborate on anything that's on the news, but I can elaborate on stuff that's happened here in town. We had a ring of individuals came to town and was able to shoplift the cards. And how we ended up catching them was there was 4 of them, and they were running. They didn't know where they were at. They were from another city, and they come to Speedway, I guess because it's close to the highway. And when they ran right into the couple dead ends we have in town. So we were able to catch them. And then they told us who brought them here and where they were at, which was actually a hotel up on 38th Street. So we went up there, got a search warrant. Our detectives got a search warrant. This is a few years back now. And we went in, and what we found out was all the stolen credit cards they had, they were taking them numbers and putting them on those gift cards, and then they were able to go purchase items with them. That was my personal experience with that. Does it still happen? I'm sure it does. Like I told you when you first came here, when I went over 16 cents on my iTunes card, a guy from Denmark cleaned out my checking account within 6 hours. So that's my personal situation. But as far as anything, like I told you, I don't watch the news much. So it's so depressing sometimes. Anybody have any other questions? Or did I answer that question for you? Because I'm sure that's what's happening everywhere. Any other questions?
Tired of guns.
Huh?
Tired of guns.
Yeah. That gun he was showing is one of our biggest fears when we're on the road, and that comes out, shots fired, and your number's called. You know, don't get me wrong. Every time we go, every time, you don't know what you're going to get. And the vest we put on in the morning does not stop that bullet. Does not. So I don't want to tell my personal opinion, but I don't like that gun, that particular gun, or that round. So, but it is definitely a thought. I know it is her thought too. Both of us have our children here today. So,
Or people too, with families.
so when we put that vest on in the morning, we hope that's going to stop anything that's coming at us. But in reality, it's not going to. We know that.
So we understand.
Go ahead.
Lighter note, I guess. Grew up here, just recently moved back.
Thank you.
Non-emergency number.
We do.
What is that?
You want to put it in your phone?
I'm ready right now.
317-246-4343. That goes straight to our dispatch, whether it be fire or EMS or police. 317-246-4343. 4343. Jill, you should have it on speed dial. I'm just messing with you.
Visual reference.
Yep.
There's also the 311.
I did call you, Jeremy.
That just goes to the department. This goes to dispatch.
Jeremy.
I've never even heard that number you just said.
311 is for non-emergency. You can call from a cell phone, and if you're in the area of Speedway, it'll go to the non-emergency line. It takes you to the same number as the non-emergency.
So here is right. However, this is my history with. Go ahead. Oh, do I need this? So my history with either dialing 911 or 311 for non-emergency. It bounces for whatever cell tower you are on if you're using a cell phone. If you dial this number for non-emergency, it's going to go straight to our dispatch. Yes. Oh, sorry.
There's a difference between calling from a landline and calling from a cell phone.
Absolutely. The cell towers, depending on where you're at, and I'm sure the traffic of that cell tower, and I learned this when NASCAR was here, because they had their own cell towers set up. And I had a situation one time at the track where I couldn't use my cell phone because they had shut down cell service. So I learned pretty quick that of the different, how the cell towers work and things of that nature.
So our area, our phones are 316 area code.
317.
Yeah, 361.
Oh, where's that at?
Texas.
Okay.
So if I do 311, will it? He was, because I called the other night.
That's an interesting question.
I'm like, well, he's like, you're gonna call the police in Corpus, and I'm like, really? So I
No,
called
she's telling me.
No, that's how 911 and 311 work now. If you're calling from a cell phone, it's going to pick up the local tower that you're in. So if you are in Speedway and you call 911 or 311, it's going to bounce off those local towers and it's going to connect you to the nearest police station.
Awesome, thank you.
In a locked car, that's why.
Oh yeah, where was that at?
By MCL.
By MCL. I see, I took one at Dollar General the other day. Anybody have any other questions about anything that's going on in town, or? Yes,
This probably
ma'am.
has nothing to do with anything other than that silencer law, which I wasn't aware of. Can you really use a potato as a silencer?
I don't know, it's been on the movies. I've never tried it.
I know.
I've never tried it.
Sounds like something we should try on our next range day, though, and get back to you. It'd be fun. Or we're gonna wear potatoes.
I don't know. I know there's there's so many loopholes in everything, regular be firearms or whatever. So I don't know if it does or not. I know it's worked on the movies. So you have a question? Oh, good.
Can you shoot food from guns?
Can you shoot food from guns?
Like
Yes.
an itsy bitsy bit of bread?
I would say not an itsy bitsy, but they do have potato guns. I've seen them.
And marshmallow guns.
And marshmallow guns.
Those are fun.
Yeah.
That
So yes.
delicious.
Yes, sir.
I had some issues with traffic on my street.
Okay. Where do you live?
I live in Auburn.
Uh-oh. What's your address?
Semi-traffic.
Yeah, I see a lot of Coke trucks. There's a Wayne Township bus that comes barreling through at about 50. If you guys want to write about 100 tickets in 5 minutes, just sit on the corner of 24th and Auburn. People are running 45, 50 through there every day, all day.
So for day shift, I will let you know most of the traffic complaints get and come to us first. Our lieutenant, Sam Alexander, is head of the traffic division for our department, and I will let you know he is a stickler about any and all complaints. So the complaints that you guys are calling in, we immediately get sent over there. So day shift gets set and sets up, and we run radar, and we do it for hours and hours on end. And inevitably, we only catch a few. We are catching a few, but it's not the amount that you guys are seeing in town, which of course, we are not going to see it while we're sitting there because they see the marked car and they're like, I don't want a ticket today. So we know that it's happening. We know.
You can't see it coming, so you're right there.
Right.
It's about 10 yards back on 24th.
We appreciate the complaints are coming in so that we know where the problems are. And also, I don't know if you're one of them, we get offered driveways a lot to sit into. Thank you for that. That does help us with our stealthy ability to catch some of these speeders. So continue reporting it. The times of day you see it the most. Non-emergency, and ask for the traffic division. It will get transferred to Lieutenant Sam Alexander usually, and then it filters down. And it's all shifts. I'm not going to say we're the only ones. It's just that a lot of the complaints happen during our hours. But you can call in and report that, and it will get filtered. And trust me, Sam Alexander.
So, I know. Addressing the semi issue. So, we've stopped several. I personally have stopped at least 10 in the last couple of years, semis that's been on Auburn. We actually had lunch with Coco. They did they had a lunch for us on 9/11, which was awesome. And I got to meet the manager over the distribution part of it. And what I find every time is they're getting an address on 25th Street. All these semis have an address on 25th Street, where in reality, the drop-off point is on Georgetown Road. So I'm working with them right now to try to get that switch, but all their invoices that they present to these contractor semi guys still has the 25th Street address, and they need to figure out a way quick, because I feel your pain a little bit because I live in town and I get semis driving up down my street too. It just tears them up, you know. They're not made for semis. To be able to tell these guys, hey, your drop-off point is off Georgetown Road. It's not on 25th Street.
They're the ones I've seen say Coca-Cola on the side.
Yeah. Well, some of them.
They're originating from there, coming back, instead of going all the way down the list.
Please let us know. We can't be everywhere all the time, so your eyes, and that's why we love and thank each of you for coming to our event to help us, because without you guys letting us know, there's no way we're going to see everything. Anybody say anything else?
Any more questions?
I got to write down whoever was from Legends, please, before everybody leaves. Okay.
For all the new faces that came today, because there's some that are definitely new to me, thank you. Please continue to come. Please continue to be here and help us and give us the information and help support us. Also, grab somebody and bring them with you next time. What I want, and some of my favorite moments in Neighborhood Watch, are when we're completely filled and everybody brings a buddy or two and we don't have enough seats and we have to hustle out and try to find some. I want to get back to that, and we're starting to get back to that, but we can't do it without you. And you guys here are a perfect example of how well this is and how much it can work together. We all love our jobs and we want to come out here and continue to do it, and we have some great programs in the department that help with that. Our Citizens Academy, our VIP, and we appreciate everything they do, but we want everyone involved, even those that don't have the time to do those programs. We want everyone here involved and continuing to give us the information, support, and work together, because it feels really good working in Speedway, the way everyone cares about each other. It's great, and I want to continue it.
Do you know when the next meeting is?
Yes, I think it's December. I have to double check my calendar. I'll bring snacks to the next one if that helps, I promise.
December 17th.
December 17th is the next one. Is there anything specific? I mean, I know there were some great programs that were brought up tonight. I just got from one of our detectives some great information on scams. A lot of the ones coming through emails, a lot of the ones on the phones. We can absolutely commit our next meeting to that topic, because I know a lot of people that's affecting and have had questions. Or if there's something anyone in here is just really wants us to hit on and present on the 17th, that gives us plenty of time to get everything. So anything specific, or you guys really want to, the scam, fraud?
And also,
Don't all jump at
Sergeant
once.
Wilson worked really hard on getting more information. One of our complaints last time was not everyone knows that the meetings are happening. So I know she really was diligent on getting with the captain and getting it posted in different places except Facebook and things of that nature. So, and I noticed it was all over the place this time. So hopefully we'll keep seeing everybody show up, and we appreciate you. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned Sergeant Wilson.
Oh, sorry.
I got married.
Hang on. Yeah. So I still call her Wilson. I don't really like her new last name personally, but I've known her for 15 years, so it's hard for me to call her.
He gave me all the first under Wilson, so he's and it's hard to transition name. But I'm the same person.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Thank God there's no twin.
I answer to both still.
I also like the property, like how to protect your homes from burglary.
Yeah.
That would be a good topic.
We've all went through school. I've went to a school through the Speedway PD sent me through it. So if you ever need me to come over and give some suggestions and talk to you about what I see and what you see, and then sometimes it's eye-opening. Yeah, we could do that too. Just sometimes we need an example, so we can go, oh, this is what we can do here, this is what we can do here. So, but for sure. Thanks for everybody coming.